I am not in favor of any tax increase. I'm very concerned how the majority of people would vote if we keep that unyielding position.
If the question is, do I favor taxing the rich or those who make over a certain amount, which I think that's probably what that question is saying, as what President Obama is proposing, the answer is no. And I'll say why that is the case. What the President is attempting to do is to say that those who have been successful are evil. This attempt is not to raise revenue. It's to create division. We all know that if you earn a living honestly, you should in fact be able to keep what you earn. We're already taxed too much. To take and tax more for those who have done better is punitive, and frankly, I believe, is in conflict with the constitutional provision to protect our property, which is frankly our income.
Sam, what are your top 3 spending and waste elimination categories?
In this order, I would say, 1, Washington needs to not raise the debt ceiling anymore, cap the spending. 1. 2, reduce spending in areas that are not constitutionally authorized. That's where the biggest savings can be made. That means Energy Department, not authorized, should go. Obamacare, health, should go. Education Department, in 4 years, can be phased out. Turn back to the states. The other spending can be reduced likely 10% at least across the board, is my experience. You do those things and you defund the United Nations, you know what? You've addressed just about all of the deficit.
There you go.
It's not that difficult to solve our problem if you go at it from the standpoint of what should we be doing, and then go from there.
What is your position to privatize government-run functions, departments, or the work, and include about the workforce?
Well, in a general sense, the question was a little hard to understand from that perspective. It's this: if the federal government, since we're talking about this in the Senate, if the federal government focuses on doing what it is constitutionally authorized to do, provide for a sound currency, provide for the basic things to allow for interstate commerce to flow easily, and for a strong national defense, you don't have to worry about as many things being privatized. Right now, the federal government is attempting to do nearly everything for us in all of the areas, all the things we talked about: healthcare, education, the whole range of things. If you have them focus on what they're supposed to do, then the issues revolve to the state level. At that point, then the states are really the implementers of public policy, and on that level, then the states can either choose to do it or put it into the hands of the private enterprise. Government is not in the business to provide services. The private sector provides services. Government is in the business to provide the level playing field in the policy so as to define what is to do and make sure that it functions evenly across the board for all. That's the best way to deal with it, I think.
What can we do to fight the forcing of Catholic universities, hospitals to provide Obamacare that pays for abortions and sterilizations?
That issue right there, I think, goes to the heart of a couple of things. A lot of folks may not understand, but that embedded within that Obamacare bill was a requirement that ultimately all hospitals provide for, ultimately, abortion care. Not care, abortions. The Catholic hospitals and other hospitals that are in that position have now taken a position to stand up and say that they will not implement those rules. And to them I say, thank you. What they have done is put down a gauntlet to the federal government. And what the federal government will now do, unless Obamacare is repealed, will simply step in and remove Medicaid or medical assistance funding from those hospitals to try and bring them to their knees financially. This is a test. This is what governors ought to be standing up to do right now and saying that we will not implement Obamacare either.
Mr. Rohrer, what will it take to rein in the superpower of the office of the President and give Congress its legislative power back?
It's a good question. There are two things. When you have a president who refuses to follow his oath and run roughshod over Congress, there are only two things that are there to be done. One, he is replaced at the next election. And secondly, but more importantly, it is Congress's responsibility through the measure of impeachment to call into question actions by those in the executive branch or in the judicial branch that run afoul of the Constitution. The impeachment process does not always end up in removal from office. Its effectiveness is in performing a grand jury type of an approach that calls into question and shines the light on the actions so that the public can see what's happening, and it's that fear that prevents the abuse by those in the judiciary or the executive. And if Congress does not, as they have not done, fail to exercise this authority, it becomes like an arm that's put in a cast. When you pull it out, it doesn't work. They don't know how to use the process. It's become political, but it is the constitutional methodology. It is what must be done. It does work, it must work, and it must be used.
Sam, can you expand on the arm twisting that went on in Hershey this past weekend?
Well, how many of you were here at the convention on Saturday? A few hands. All right, unfortunately, I'm not getting into all the detail, but I think what you saw there and what I told the state committee people on Saturday morning, what you have felt in the twisting of your arm to get a vote for a candidate preferred by a few people is what Washington is all about. And when individuals, by their own testimony, are threatened with loss of jobs, if they do not, it is just like Washington. This is a matter of whether or not votes, in this case, should be made by individual choice based on best information, or whether or not a special interest or others in power or control should use any means to coerce or force an artificial vote. This is a matter of process. This is a matter of policy. It doesn't work. It's not what ought to be done in a party or in Washington.
With registration of Democrats at 4.2 million, Republicans at 3.1 million, and independents at 1 million in the state of Pennsylvania, how do you reach out to independents in the November election?
I think you reach out to both independents and Democrats with a message that is constitutional, that says, if you elect me, I am not owned by the party, I am not owned by special interest, and I will stand on an oath to support that Constitution. And let that be the measure of the person. Independents want someone who goes to Washington, as well as many Democrats do. They want someone who's going to go and not vote to entrench themselves, but to vote to magnify independence and freedom for our people on the ground. That is, I think, is how the message is there. The historic Republican message appeals across the board. It's when the message is distorted that nobody wants it. And I think that's where we stand right now. And I also say here, term limits, you know what I think I like even better than the Jim DeMint's bill? I'd like to see the 17th Amendment eliminated and replaced with making the U.S. senators go back and be appointed by the state legislature. Then you have a difference. And then earmarks. Earmarks must go. Earmarks are the tool for bribery and the cause of much deficit spending.
Mr. Rohrer, can you give us your thoughts regarding Sharia law and our laws?
My thoughts are very clear on this issue. Sharia law and the Constitution are mutually exclusive. They cannot coexist. The Constitution and the rule of law of the Constitution recognizes that God gave inalienable rights, not government. Government is to protect those rights. Sharia law is not just a religion, it is, in fact, a law. It says it cannot coexist with another competitive law, which means Sharia law and the Constitution, America as we know it, cannot coexist. It cannot be defined any other way.
Mr. Rohrer, can you give us your stand on immigration?
I love legal immigration, because that's what we are as a nation. When their laws are followed, it is appropriate. The problem is that the laws are not being enforced. And so, as was said earlier, what do you do about immigration? You encourage legal and you discourage illegal. You seal that border, as was said, to which I fully agree. You do not provide taxpayer-provided services to those who are here illegally. They will go back home on their own, most all. And then you change the system placed right now that is prohibiting and discouraging those from coming here legally. I have a daughter-in-law, born in Canada, wants to be a citizen. In the process for 5 years or more, spent thousands of dollars and is not yet an American citizen. Work the system the way it should be. Enforce the law appropriately, encourage it to be done properly, and you discourage and force the law to prevent those who want to come in illegally. It's not that difficult.